Hello, we've been asked to update some earlier eTEK CD, training CD material that we've developed over a period of time on earlier versions of Microsoft Access and kind of update that in the context of Microsoft Office 2007 and specifically Access 2007. So this presentation is designed primarily to kind of replicate what we've done previously on earlier versions of Microsoft Access. And we typically will start with some basic definitions, and this is sort of ground zero. This is the most fundamental, the simplest, the easiest version that we have on our training program for understanding relational databases and how to do things. We're going to start with some basic definitions and concepts. We really need to understand the difference between files and databases, and more specifically, we need to understand what a relational database is, since you're involved with one or more of our products or systems somewhere in the world. Obviously, as you well know, we've been building relational database business systems for quite some time, almost 12 years now. So it's important to understand within that database the various relationships between tables and keys, and very brief understanding about referential integrity. And then we'll create an ad hoc database that's linked to the production database. This is a non-trivial exercise, but this is one of those things where the light bulbs go off. And we have many customers who, years after acquiring our software, they realize, oh my goodness, I can do so much more myself if I just create a database that I can use for my ad hoc analysis and reporting, and I'll link it to the actual production database, and I can't mess things up. And that's exactly as clear as I can say it. That's an obvious benefit, is you can make mistakes in your ad hoc quote-unquote database for informal ad hoc analysis and reporting and not mess up your live production data. And how does linking work? Well, we'll kind of very briefly show how that works. And then we're going to conclude with just the top of the trees on how to create and use online queries. Again, if you're into relational databases, very quickly you start understanding and appreciate online queries, and also as a result of that, how you can create, based upon those queries and the tables behind those queries in your linked database, how you can create your own ad hoc reports and that sort of thing. So let me flip back up here, and the first basic understanding that we need to start with is we are not talking about a dumb rows and column Microsoft Excel. Everybody knows, here's a Microsoft Excel, here are columns, okay, fine, and here are rows of data, and there's all kinds of capabilities with Microsoft Excel, and we certainly recognize that. We can export information out of our systems into Excel, but those are typically called flat files. And by flat files, I mean you really don't have some of the advantages that are built into understanding in a database context what we mean. So to start drilling down into databases and the relational database and understanding tables and keys, we're going to dive right under the covers right now into Microsoft Access. And this is, as many of you that are using Access 2007 already know, I'm going to create here a let's see, I'm down here on the right-hand bottom. You take your eyes down here at the bottom. I'll create a ad hoc training database. I'm going to put it in a temporary folder on my system. This is basically just Explorer type stuff. I mean, anybody can do this, but you just find a place in your system. I think what I'll do is go ahead and put this over in the let's go back to the computer here. Go down to the main storage drive, and I'm going to put this over in a temporary folder I have for such things as this. Basically, all I'm doing is telling Access, here's where I want you to put this blank database. And so we're starting with a blank database, and we're going to put it there. And you'll see down at the bottom, it's going to put it in wherever I designate it. It's going to put this ad hoc training database, and when I click on the Create button, it creates essentially a blank or empty database. The easy thing to do now is to go out and go to the external data, and you'll notice that obviously with Microsoft Access 2007 and many of the earlier versions of Access, there's all kinds of ways to bring data over and populate or fill in your blank database that you're creating. I'm going to go link to an existing production data. In this particular case, I'm going to link to some sample database. And so the linking process is what I'm showing you now. And when we get those created, then I'll get back to tables and keys and what makes up a database. And you'll see that I'm going to basically here, the prompt you'll read, if you read the prompts, I'm going to import data from an Access database. Well, the first thing it's asking me is where is the data that you want to bring over into your Ad-Hoc database. And typically what this is going to be, you're going to browse and go to that database that is your production database. Don't worry, you're not going to mess anything up. Basically what you're doing is you're telling the system, here is where I'm going to pull things out of my production database. I think I've got one here under eTEK accounting. In my particular case, I'm going to pull it out of a sample database, and all I'm doing is saying, here is the source of the data that I now want to import into this blank database that I want to link to. You'll notice down here, we don't need all the tables and queries. You don't want the whole database. What you really want to do is you just want to link to the data source. And now when you click here, the next question is going to ask you, and you can see here, for those that are familiar with our commercial products, there's a number of quote-unquote tables that make up a database behind your system. In this particular case, I'm just arbitrarily keeping this very, very simple. I think what we'll do is we'll go to the AR side of the business and we'll pick AR customers. We'll get some detail records and a header record. Let's see, I think that's all I need. Other than we're highly normalized, and this is the point that I want to talk a little bit about referential integrity. Imagine, for example, the old days, the older systems where you had to worry about keeping the addresses correct and the zip codes correct and stuff like that. What I'm showing you here is the okay, I'm looking for the, there we go, right there. We have a table where we put information that's basically the names. So you only have to enter the name once. You only have to enter the zip code once. You know, for all the addresses that you use in your system, it's always using the correct zip code because the zip code is in one zip code table. In this particular case, you're seeing a variation of this. Well, what happened very quickly on your screen is we now have linked to the AR customer table. And the AR, well, what's this look like? If I open it and I just double click on it, this doesn't mean a lot. But if I go and I right mouse and I say, show me the design view, oh, okay, now I'm trying to see, yes, we want to open this. Oh, now I'm seeing, here's the primary key, here's the pointer to the company name. I can scroll down here and see all the fields. Here's the tax exempt status, the account number. You see on your screen, in other words, these now are fields of data within the table that is the table that relates to AR customers. Well, tables of data don't do me anything until I start doing something with them. And this is where we're going to get our lesson on what we mean by a relational database. Because the first thing I'm going to do, and a picture's worth 1,000 words, is we just go into the Query Design tool. And the Query Design tool is basically where I select what tables have data that I want to do something with. Analyze, I want to run a query and get results out. I want to sort the data different ways. I want to reorder it. I want to do some analysis. I may even want to generate a report from the query. Now, the most important thing to understand about a relational database is on your screen right now. If you work at a little higher level of detail with eTEK and our support team, this is old hat. Okay, you're already aware of the fact that our design is taking care of some really important basic things like the one-to-many relationship. And the clearest example of that, you'll see the table called an AR invoice header. Well, that implies something, doesn't it? It does imply for each of those individual AR invoices a header. There can, in fact, be many, you see the infinite sign here, many actual line items and specific items that make up any given invoice. And if I click on this little one-to-many linkage, it's going to bring up exactly what I just said. These are called the join properties. A relational database, unlike very simple, flat file structures, a relational database has the benefits, and this may look more complicated than it really is, but the relational database has the benefits of linking these kinds of things together. So you don't have this huge flat file of a zillion columns and a zillion rows in order to get all of the information managed and controlled properly. It's being done for you under a relational database model. So it's important to understand that in databases, relational databases, you have tables of data that are related to each other. For example, in the AR customers, we need a name for who we're talking about. Well, all of those names and addresses and all that sort of thing, we maintain in a table for that purpose. An example, I can take this name, I can say, okay, if I drag this name down and I put it in the first field of my query design tool that Microsoft has provided, I could have just as easily double-clicked it, click this, then that means that when this query runs, it's going to go out and get the name, right? The specific name for each one of these customers, many customers. In the AR customer table, I carry some information that is very useful for various reports. And again, one of the things that eTEK's support team is really good at is for those users that want to go, you take advantage of the capabilities and the flexibilities and the way we've designed our software and go beyond just kind of what's built in and do some of your own things, your own analysis and your own work. We want to make sure you're aware of what's in here. Okay, in this particular table, you may pick up the phone and say, okay, Donna, George, Pete, Sam, Al, Christy, whoever, where do I find the balance due amount? Well, okay, that's in the TD_AR customers table. With that kind of information, if you're having problems, you don't know where things are, we'll be more than happy to do that. So in the AR customer table, that's where we've got a field that's the balance due. So I'm going to go ahead and arbitrarily double-click that and put it down as my second piece of information. Well, while I'm at it, let's get the amount that they've paid. So here's the amount that we've invoiced. We'll put that alongside of it. And here's the amount that they've paid. Well, what's this all mean? It means that you're designing a query to go into this database, ad hoc database that you created that's linked to the actual production data. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, here's the deal. When the balance due has changed in the production system, and you have your database for ad hoc reporting linked, okay, and you refresh, you've got to refresh it, you refresh and you refresh your ad hoc database that's linked to the production data. The production database is going to obviously come over here and populate your tables in your ad hoc database so you have the current information. And then you can do whatever you want to do with it and not be worried about messing up the production data. Okay, let's go ahead and run this query. I probably have forgotten a few things. Oh yeah, what we need to do here is to, let's add some criteria. Let's go back to the query, right mouse, design view, and I'm going to go back and, let's sort this information from the, actually we'll descend from the highest value down to the lowest value. And the other thing we want to do is we want to sum on the totals so we don't get every line item. So we go ahead and run the query. Bingo. Okay, I've got a query. I'm now into the ad hoc analysis part of this thing. And again, we've kept this very, very simple. But you've now got a listing, basically, by the customer from that customer that has the highest balance due amount to the lowest. Okay, obviously credit memos down here. Well, okay, big deal. All right, so we'll save this query. And the only reason I'm saving it is I'm going to, and we typically have a naming standard we encourage you to adopt, put a preface, Q _, what do we call this database? We called it ad hoc, okay, ad hoc train. So Q ad hoc train, and so now we have a query that's now in one of the objects that's in your system. I'm going to close this. And we're going to take advantage of that query from the point of view of, if you'll look under here, under queries, you'll see that query ad hoc train that's available. Well, let's do it. I want to create a report now. Hope we are not moving too fast for everybody, but let's use the report, report wizard. I want to make sure that you're aware. As an end user, obviously you can jump right into the blank report. You can do labels, you can all kinds of stuff. You can design input forms, you can do all kinds of things on your ad hoc with your ad hoc database to further extend your report. We'll use a report wizard just to keep things simple. And here we're going to go down and just go ahead and use that query we saved. And it has that kind. I'm going to take all that information over here. I'm going to select those fields. What fields do you want on your report? Okay, that's easy enough. I'm going to go here. I'm going to group this. I'll group this by. I'm going to put balance due. I'm going to organize it so that those are the pieces of information that are applicable to the name. If you want to sort up to 4 different fields, you can certainly do that. Let's just go ahead and alphabetize. We'll go ahead and make this ascending. No, let's just leave this alone. We don't have to sort anything. Okay, and we'll have a step report, and here it goes. And we'll put this in what kind of a format, what style. There's all kinds of styles. One of the things that we're asked sometimes, beyond the flat file and limitations of Excel and other simpler programs, one of the things that's pretty nice, Microsoft's done a great job of building these templates, and you can basically create some pretty nice looking reports. What title do you want to give your report? All you got to do is just go up here and let's take the Q and make that an R, because this object is going to be a report. And I may want to modify the report's design. So I'm going to finish. The reason I'm going to modify the report's design because I want to make sure some things fit okay with this thing. And one of the things that's what we're probably going to need to do is we're probably going to need to have a little bit more room, for example, for the name, right? And I'm only doing this just to show you that there's all kinds. You may want to change this. You may want to call this. It internally may be called R whatever, but you may want to give this a label, and we'll call this ad hoc. Something user-friendly, ad hoc. Training. In this particular case, this is really technically a balance due analysis. Okay, all right, that's fine. And then when you've got that, you're through playing around and you've got that design, then you can go ahead and let's go ahead and look at this in the report view. There's your report. Okay. So your ability to take this relational database system, and if you'll remember all those tables that came out when we got to pick, there's really no limitation to the amount of things. It's just a matter of trying it and playing with it and getting used to it and going ahead and extend the return on your investment in the eTEK system that you've installed and you're using in your organization. So it's important for you to understand that this ability to create your own ad hoc reports, I'll back up a step, is tied into understanding how to use online queries. And putting those queries together is basically, there's tools built in the Microsoft Access that allows you to create an ad hoc database and link it to your actual production data. Okay, this concludes this particular training CD. It's meant to be very brief and very simple. And any questions you may have, don't hesitate. Call our support team and they'll be glad to help you further with it. Thanks.